When I checked the nightstand drawer, I found a bottle of massage oil inside. I said nothing, just quietly replaced it with a jar full of sticky honey. What happened then made the neighbors rush to call the firemen. Having you here makes this journey worth it. If you enjoyed my story, please subscribe, and let's keep sharing moments like this together. Leave me a comment with where you're listening from. I can't wait to see how far this family of listeners has grown. The text came at 2:11 a.m., a bright white wound in the dark. Are you alone? His phone lit the ceiling in a trembling rectangle, the blue night lamp of strangers, and I lay still with my eyes half closed, listening to the soft, guilty click of him locking the screen again. He thought I was asleep. I'd been practicing the rhythm of it for weeks, the slower breath, the loose fingers curled over the duvet edge, the tiny snore that sounded like wind through a keyhole. My heart, though, it didn't get the memo. It punched at my ribs like it wanted out. I tasted metal. In the quiet, the house spoke in its old bones, the heater's low hum, the restless knock of a tree branch at the bedroom window, the refrigerator's soft throat clearing down the hall. He slid out of bed. The mattress lifted inside. Bathroom, he whispered to no one, to the dark, to whatever version of me would not wake. I heard the pad of his feet cross the hardwood, the reluctant groan of the door. The thin line of light cut under it like a blade. I stared at the nightstand drawer on his side. He'd started guarding it the way you guard a secret, too careful, too casual. Once, I'd reached for lip balm and he'd practically dove across the bed like I was about to detonate a device. Messy, he'd said, smiling too wide. Wires. Chargers. It's a tangle in there. He made it sound trivial. He'd always been good at trivializing what hurt me. The bathroom fan whirred to life. I got out of bed quietly and my feet found the cold seam in the floorboard I always missed in the daytime. Our room smelled like sleep, warm skin, a faint laundry powder, the stale ghost of his cologne that claimed to be cedar and behaved like chemical lemons. I didn't turn on a lamp. The dark was kinder. I opened the nightstand drawer an inch. It stuck, then slid with a sigh. Wires, yes. Chargers, yes. Old receipts, a quarter that still wore a blush of pink nail polish from some long ago spill. And a bottle. Short, heavy glass. A white cap. I could read the label by touch almost as much as by sight, vanilla. I twisted the cap an eighth of a turn and a sweet, cheap scent breathed up. The kind of vanilla that lives at the back of fluorescent stores in bow-tied ribbons and promises it never keeps. He hated that stuff. He'd said so in the way men say they are above things. Tacky, he'd called massage oil, months ago, the night I'd suggested we try something new. We're not teenagers. He'd kissed my forehead as if it were a favor, and I'd let the suggestion die like a candle nobody watched. The bottle weighed my palm. It had some heft to it, maybe half full. A smear of oil glowed on my thumb in the blue dark. I rubbed it against my forefinger, and it moved like silk had learned to be dishonest. Something in my chest buckled, the way roofs buckle under snow. I put it back. The fan clicked off. Water pattered, then stopped. I closed the drawer and slid into bed, blank as glass. I settled my face toward the window, away from his side, and tried to rearrange my breathing into dream. He came back smelling like toothpaste and the kind of liquor that imitates honesty. He lifted the corner of the duvet with one hand, careful not to brush my hips the way he used to. You up? He said, too softly. I made the keyhole snore. He lay down and the mattress took him in. After a long minute, his hand hovered over my shoulder, then retreated. I counted 5 breaths before I let myself open my eyes to the ceiling again, that gray square of midnight the streetlight painted above us. The text still burned there, are you alone? In the morning he made coffee with the performative kindness of a man who wants a medal. He slid a mug across the counter toward me. You okay? He asked, like a doctor who has somewhere else to be. Fine, I said. My voice came out steady, almost bored. I could feel the shape of last night's bottle in my mind, as if the glass had left a bruise on my hand. He had his phone face down next to his elbow. He rarely did that before. He scrolled with his index finger anyway, as if muscle memory could get through granite. Busy day, he added. I looked at the calendar on the refrigerator with its little magnet shaped like a cherry. The car payment due on the 15th. The circled Friday with client dinner in his blocky writing. The sticky note with my handwriting, call HR, open roll. I'd stuck it there 3 times this month, like a dare to myself. The mortgage payment line item blinked in my brain. The savings account that never grew. The math we built together like a fragile bridge and how he'd started crossing it alone. I said, and sipped. The coffee was too strong. He always made it like that, a statement, not a drink. He watched me over the rim of his mug. He had the kind of eyes that could be kind or calculating depending on the light. What? He said, smiling, not smiling. You're quiet. Didn't sleep. I set the mug down. It clicked against the counter like something tiny breaking. He leaned in to kiss my cheek and caught my hair instead. You worry too much. About everything. You're almost never home before 10, I said, as if I were commenting on the weather. You hate your boss more than you love your job. What could possibly keep you that long? He laughed. You know how it is. He straightened his tie. Deadlines. You spiral. Don't spiral. He had this way of reshelving my feelings, like books he'd never read. Don't spiral, he said again with the easy cruelty of a mantra, and picked up his keys. They chimed in his palm. Right, I said, and traced the rim of my mug with a finger. At the door he hesitated. His thumb brushed the phone face down on the counter, hesitated, then pocketed it like a magician palming a coin. After he left, the house swallowed the sound. The clock over the sink ticked like it had secrets, too. I rinsed my cup. The water ran hot and then hotter, steam lifted and got in my eyelashes. I dried my hands on the dish towel that never fully lost the lemon cleaner smell. I walked back down the hall and stood in the doorway of our bedroom. When you know, you know. But knowing is not the same thing as proving. He trained our arguments over time. A semester's worth of syllabi in how to feel foolish. You're imagining things. It's not always about you. We're adults. Each sentence a tiny eraser. I sat on the bed and let it push back at my weight, Springs complaining softly. Above the dresser, the mirror held me at arm's length. Pale in the daylight, hair up in the careless knot he'd once called sexy. I lifted the nightstand drawer again. The bottle was there, patient. I lifted it, turned it in my hand. The label had a fake gold border in a font that pretended to be French. I pressed the cap to my nose. Sugar air, birthday cake, teenage locker rooms, none of it belonged to us. The oil clung stubbornly to my skin, refusing to rinse off with one pass of the towel. I thought of the grocery list on my phone. Eggs, paper towels, olive oil. Honey. I'd added honey because I'd wanted it for tea at night, when the anxiety buzzed a little too hard. It was still sealed in the pantry, a small mason jar with a metal lid you had to pry with your nails. I set the bottle down like it might bite and went to the kitchen. The jar sat behind the flour. When I pulled it forward, sunlight cut through it and the whole kitchen went gold. It was heavier than it looked. I tilted it, watched the slow sun inside tilt back. The lid clicked when I twisted it, 1, 2, 3 little pops, and then gave, releasing the perfume of clover and summer and bees you never see but always hear. What are you doing? I asked the quiet room, but the voice was mine, and a little too steady. My phone buzzed across the counter. A notification preview, Maya, the friend who texted me memes when she didn't know how else to help. Lunch tomorrow? You okay? I hovered over reply, then let it go dark. One thing at a time, I told myself, and heard the old fear answer back, what if you run out of time? I carried the jar down the hall the way you carry a candle against wind. My fingers were sticky already from the lid. The sweetness crawled up into my throat, cloying. In the bedroom I stood over his drawer, the bottle beside it like a lying sentinel. I thought of bank statements, the way he'd started folding them into his briefcase instead of leaving them on the entryway table. I thought of how he'd canceled our weekend at the shore because it's not smart right now, but came home with new cufflinks that flashed at his wrists like secrets. I thought of me at the HR portal at midnight, cursor blinking in the salary box like a dare I kept failing. I crouched. I could hear our upstairs neighbor vacuuming, a distant whine. A siren somewhere blocks away rose and fell. The house smelled like dust and my hand like summer fields. I set the jar next to the bottle. The plan slid into me fully formed, not a movie, not a fantasy, just a clean line of cause and effect as neat as math. I unscrewed the cap of the vanilla. I held both open. The oil caught the light, clear, eager. The honey waited, slow and certain. The smallest smile tugged my mouth and then left. This wasn't joy. This was gravity. Keys scratched at the front door. Metal on metal, the familiar clatter. He was home early. My body went very still, my breath a coin held between my teeth. The drawer yawned, the jar warmed in my hands, and somewhere down the hall, the deadbolt turned. The deadbolt turned and my first thought wasn't fear, it was calculation. I slid the honey back into the drawer, shut it with my knee, and held my breath so hard my chest sang. Babe, he called, that soft, public voice he used for waiters and neighbors. The smell of cold air came in with him, and underneath it the bright, sour line of whiskey. Keys clinked on the dish by the door, 2 beats like a metronome keeping time for a lie. In here, I said, and my voice surprised me by not shaking. I capped the oil with one hand, the honey with the other, palms sticky and fragrant. Clover and vanilla and nerves. He came down the hall loosening his tie, the strip of silk a snake he'd already shed. Forgot my laptop, he said, easing into the room like a man who doesn't want to spook the horse. His eyes swept the bed, the floor, my face. He smiled when he saw me sitting cross-legged by the nightstand, as if he'd caught me painting my nails, domestic, innocent. Late meeting? I asked, picking up a book as a prop. My thumb left a sweet print on the page I wasn't reading. He kissed the air near my cheek. You know how it is. He bent, opened the drawer, my skin prickled so hard it felt like rain, and grabbed a charger. Not the bottle. Not yet. He straightened, the knot at his throat tugged to the side now. Don't wait up, he said, and that's when the small, rectangular light buzzed in his pocket like a trapped fly. He flinched. It was the flinch more than the phone that made the anger move through me like heat from an oven. I kept my face soft. You should take an aspirin, I said. Your eyes look tired. He laughed, relieved by the ordinary shape of my concern. I'll be fine. He pivoted, then paused. Tomorrow, big day. Be early. Which was new. He rarely told me his times unless he needed an audience. After he left, the door snicked shut so gently I could almost believe he cared that I might be asleep. The hallway swallowed him, the apartment settled. I stayed on the floor listening to the quiet tick of the house until my legs went pins and needles and the sticky on my palms cooled. I washed my hands at the bathroom sink. The warm water bloomed honey into gold, and I watched it curl down the porcelain like a small ceremony. I dried them on his monogrammed towel and hung it carefully as if I hadn't touched it. Then I went back to the drawer. The plan was stupid. Petty. Dangerous. It could backfire in every possible way. But the thought of doing nothing felt like dying in place. I swapped the caps, oil on honey, honey on oil, then smiled at myself for almost doing the dumbest thing imaginable and corrected it. I poured. A slow amber rope slid into the bottle, swallowed the last clear shine, it thickened, clung, filled. I pressed the white cap until it clicked with a neat little oath. I wiped the threads of sweetness from the glass with a tissue, folded the tissue into a square, and tucked it deep in the trash. A car passed outside, its headlights folding softly over the blinds like breathing. My phone lit up with Maya's name and a cartoon of a raccoon peeking over a fence. Still alive? She wrote. I typed yes and then without thinking added, can I crash on your couch this weekend? My finger hovered. I deleted the question and sent only the yes. One risk at a time. He came home after 10, his jacket smelling like a bar tried too hard to be a library. We orbited each other in the kitchen, the choreography of long seasons together. I sprinkled salt over the pan, chicken I'd overcooked to safety, while he told me a story about a client who refused to sign and a coworker who couldn't count. He made me laugh, he always could, because I knew where the laughter lived and how to tap it like a sugar maple. It hurt to be good at us. "Do you want tea?" I asked. The honey jar on the counter glowed like proof. I turned it so the label faced the wall. "I'm wiped," he said. "Shower. Bed." I nodded and took too long washing a single spoon. The spoon was stainless steel and had a tiny burr at the handle where we dropped it once. I rubbed that burr with my thumb until it made a small, satisfying catch on my skin. In the bathroom, the water came on full and hot, steam sneaking under the door like a thief. His voice hummed a tune he'd never remember, the way men sing when they are pleased with themselves. I went to the bedroom. The room was neat in the way I kept things neat when I wanted to believe I had control: hospital corners, books squared, shoes aligned. His nightstand waited. I opened the drawer and set the bottle right at the front. I could see my reflection in the glass, small, distorted, a woman peering through amber, and thought of those museum insects trapped forever in sap. I closed the drawer and sat on the edge of the bed. The sheets were cool against my calves. My heart felt ridiculous, overperforming for an audience of none. He came out in a towel, steam following him like a loyal dog. "God," he said, toweling his hair. "I needed that." Drops fell from his hairline onto his shoulders and ran a single bright line down his chest. If pain had a smell, it would have been the citrus shampoo he always used because it said invigorating on the label. "Long day," I said. He looked at me like he was deciding which version of himself to be. The tender one? The jokester? The distant prince? He chose casual. "You okay?" "You seem," a vague hand wave. He was careful with adjectives. They had a way of boomeranging. "Tired," I said, and smiled enough to cross a bridge he didn't deserve. "You have that early morning." "I'll set an alarm." He moved past me to his side of the bed, slid open the drawer, and I heard the small, clean sound of the bottle's cap turning. My body went so still I realized the only moving parts were my eyes and the thought, there is no going back, there is only forward. He hesitated. Put the bottle down. Picked up lip balm instead and grinned. "Winter," he said, swiping it on. "Can't stand how dry it gets." He closed the drawer and I realized I'd been holding air like a diver. I let it out very slowly. In bed, he bunched the pillow, scrolled his phone, laughed under his breath at something only he in the dark could see. I lay on my side, back to him, and studied the texture of the wall, the paint rolled on too thick, the micro shadows around the nail hole where a frame used to be. In the quiet, I heard the neighbor upstairs drop something heavy and mutter a curse in a language I didn't know. The radiator clicked in little metallic syllables. The house was a choir of small, faithful noises. My throat felt tight, my mouth sweet and then sour. I had licked, without noticing, the dot of honey off my thumb. He shifted closer and pressed a hand to my hip. The heat of his palm was almost enough to start the old reflex. I told my body the new story. It listened. "Hey," he said softly, voice lowered the way men lower their voices when they ask for a promise. "You asleep?" "Not yet." "You're beautiful." He said it like a truce he wanted credit for. My jaw made a small, involuntary movement, a muscle flex you could call a smile if you didn't care about accuracy. "Come here," I said, and the words tasted both cruel and kind in my mouth, like medicine. In the dark, he reached across me toward the drawer. Whisper of wood on wood. I heard the rattle of the bottle neck against a ring of coins. The cap turning. A pause. He blew out a breath like a man about to sign something he hadn't read. "Turn the lamp off," he said, even though the room was already nearly night. I clicked the switch anyway for the theater of it. The ceiling disappeared. The world reduced itself to mattress, breath, the faint burn of laundry detergent, the floral ghost of his shampoo, the sugar note I could no longer tell was in the air or in my blood. He laughed quietly, a little boy sound he'd never hate in himself. "You're going to love this," he murmured, selling me the future. I lay back and felt the bed receive me, felt the borders of my body sharpen as if the darkness had given the edges I'd been missing. Somewhere on the nightstand, his phone buzzed, a short insistent insect. He ignored it. The drawer clicked shut. The mattress dipped. The bottle lifted. I closed my eyes and prayed to no one at all that the honey would be enough, and that I would be, too, when the first slow, sticky sound tore the silence in half. It didn't glide, it grabbed. The sound wasn't romantic, it was the sound of tape torn from a box, a wet rip that made my teeth ache. He froze. "What?" Then he laughed, a sharp, embarrassed chuckle. "Slippery, huh?" I said, because my mouth had gone dry and my palms were damp and sweet, and I could feel the bed holding its breath with me. He tried again. The noise came louder this time, a peel and a pop, skin coming away from cotton and then suctioning back as if the sheets had opinions. He swore under his breath. A citrus-clean smell from his shower fought with the heavy sugar in the air and lost. "Is this new?" His voice climbed a step. "Feels thick." "You got it," I whispered. He slapped a palm against the sheet to brace himself and it stuck with a wet kiss. He yanked and hissed, more offended than afraid. "What is this?" I didn't answer. I could see almost nothing, but my ears had learned the map, the drag of his forearm, the creak of the slats, the little squeal of fabric surrendered a few threads at a time. He shifted his weight, and the bed chorused a dozen sticky sucks, each one a small confession. "Turn on the light," he said. Not a request. I reached for the lamp, my fingers finding the cool metal of the switch. The bulb bloomed dull and yellow, and there he was, hair damp and standing in tender spikes, shoulders shining with a pale amber sheen. Strands of the sheet webbed his skin like spun sugar. His expression, though, that was the part that hooked a hook in me, not pain, not yet, but outrage. The universe had broken the rules on him. "What did you buy?" He inspected his palm as if it had betrayed him. The honey relicked his fingerprints. "This isn't oil." He raised the bottle, squinted. "Why is it slow?" My throat worked. "Maybe read the label." He did, and his face performed a silent opera, squint, frown, disbelief, accusation. "You switched it," he said softly, like a detective laying down a trump card. "You think this is funny?" "You keep a bottle in our drawer," I said, tasting the calm like a piece of ice on my tongue. "I thought maybe you wanted sweet." He lunged for the edge of the bed to stand, but the fitted sheet refused. A sound came out of him, half grunt, half shout, as his thighs stayed glued. He grabbed the sheet with both hands and pulled. It stretched, threatened, tore a little with a scream of fibers. He flailed and knocked his phone off the nightstand. It hit the hardwood and flashed up at us face first, bright as a spotlight. A preview bloomed. "Are you alone?" The same question, patient as a metronome. He stared. Then his eyes flicked to me and I watched the old script cue up, blame, deflect, deny. "It's work," he said, and even he heard how stupid that sounded. "A client. You know how it is. Clients ask if you're alone at 2 in the morning?" The room was hot now, steam and sugar and irritation. He tried again to stand, the sheet tried to keep him. "Help me," he said, the words ground through his teeth. I didn't move. I could feel my pulse in my wrists, my neck, the backs of my eyes. I watched the way the honey had traveled, wherever his hands had gone without thinking, a gloss on his forearms, a bruised dark shine at his hip, a starburst across the pillowcase where his hair touched. It would be comical if it didn't feel like a map. He reached for the nightstand and the drawer slid toward him, jamming against his fingers. Coins rattled. He swore again, loud now, the decorum falling. "God damn it!" "Keep your voice down," I said, but even as I said it the upstairs neighbor banged once on their floor, a muffled thud that made our lamp tremble. He met my eyes. There was a new thing in his, quick and bright, fear trying not to name itself. He dug at the edge of the sheet, trying to peel it like old wallpaper. The honey had threaded itself through the cotton, darkening it to the color of tea. He got a corner free with a rip that made both of us wince. The free part slapped back and stuck to his wrist. "Stop moving," I said, and the steadiness surprised me. "It hardens when you get hot." He froze, panting. "How do you know that?" "It's honey," I said, and the word was a bell rung in a small room. "Bees do what they do." "You're insane," he whispered. He looked so suddenly young, not with tenderness but with the nakedness of someone who's lost the edge of their mask. His eyes watered, not from sadness, from effort, and he blinked angrily, like a swimmer coughing up pool water. "Get scissors. Or, I don't know, alcohol. Something." "Rubbing alcohol ignites," I said. "We're not doing that." His laugh was a sharp bark. "Since when do you know chemistry?" "Since I read labels," I said. The honey smell had gone from kitchen sweet to something cloying, sickroom sweet. I cracked the window an inch. Cold air knifed in, and he shivered, which made him pull, which made another chorus of suction pops fill the room. He slapped the mattress with his palm, a loud smack that set the glass of water on the nightstand trembling. "You think this is a joke? You think this is cute?" He pitched his voice into a neighbor-friendly register, fake calm fraying at the edges. "Help me, or I swear to God." "Or you swear to God what?" He stared like I'd slapped him in a way he didn't have a script for. The phone buzzed again on the floor. "You there?" Then, a little bubble that meant the other person was typing, then nothing. The apartment ticked like a bomb that had decided to take its time. He curled forward to reach the phone, and the sheet clasped his stomach, loud and obscene. He gasped. I saw the exact moment it went from ridiculous to painful. The skin at his hip reddened as if a sunburn had bloomed in fast motion. "Okay," I said quietly, because I am not cruel in the ways he imagines. "We need oil. Real oil. It can break sugar bonds." "Maybe." Slowly. "You did this," he said, and the words were accusatory and pleading at once. "You brought the bottle home." He closed his eyes and his throat worked. "Just get something." I went to the kitchen. The floor was cold through my socks, and the refrigerator hummed like it was considering a confession. I grabbed the olive oil and a stack of dish towels, the old ones with the faint coffee stains that never fully left. In the hall, a draft fingered my neck. Our building carried other people's lives like a pocket carries lint, someone's TV laugh track, someone's baby's complaining breath, the click of a door latch that had misaligned years ago. Back in the bedroom, he had managed to peel one knee free, the freed knee stuck to his calf, and he cursed in a ragged whisper. "Don't just stand there," he said when he saw me, and then, softer, "Please." The please knocked something loose in me. I poured oil into my palm and warmed it by rubbing my hands together. The olive smell cut through the sugar like green air in a candy store. "This will feel strange," I said, and he snorted a laugh so involuntary it almost hurt. I worked the oil between cotton and skin, slow, with the focus of someone diffusing a little balm. The sheet relented in slick inches. He let out a breath he'd been holding like a coin in his mouth. "Good," he said. "Good. Keep going." It sounded wrong and right all at once. We moved in a strange choreography, me pulling, him pausing, me oiling, him bracing. The towel under my arm caught drips, the pillowcase took new stains and olive ovals. Every success made him greedier, tugging too soon, and every too soon stuck him worse. "Stop," I said, and he actually did. His chest rose and fell fast. A line of honey had made a bright arc across his ribs, and I thought of crime scene photos, of trajectories. "Who is she?" I asked, before I could stop myself. He turned his head slowly, as if his neck were on hinges that remembered easier years. "Don't," he said. "Not now." When, then? The oil cooled on my fingers, I warmed more. When it's easier for you? He shut his eyes. It's not, he bit down on whatever sentence would have insulted us both. Please, he said again, and the word came out as raw as a knee rash. The neighbors had chosen that moment to exist more loudly than usual. A laugh in the hallway, a door thump. Somewhere, a microwave beeped. My hand slipped under a stuck edge and the sheet surrendered with a long, obscene kiss. He sagged. The phone buzzed again on the floor. This time a name flashed, not just a number. I saw it and the room snapped taut like a sail. He saw me seeing and his face went white. Don't, he said, and the plea turned to command. A knock slammed into our front door, 3 knuckles, fast, the kind of knock people use when they've chosen concern over politeness. We both froze. The bed made a tiny, comedic smooch sound, obscene in the quiet. Everything okay in there? A muffled voice. Mr. Alvarez from across the hall, retired electrician, always smelling faintly of pipe tobacco. We heard. I don't know. Is someone hurt? My husband's eyes went huge and glassy. Do not open that door, he whispered. Another knock, louder. Hey, if you need help, say so. I held the oil, my fingers slick and shining, my breath stacked like wet pages, and stared at the bedroom doorway as if the door itself might answer for us. The knock came again, followed by the quick, sharp trill of someone dialing, and then Mr. Alvarez's voice, urgent and small through the wood, I'm calling, hang on, fire department will be faster than an ambulance. The siren started as a rumor and arrived as a wall of sound. Red washed over our ceiling in stuttering breaths, strobes turning our bedroom into a bad dream. My husband mouthed don't you dare and I whispered back I didn't dial, but the doorbell cut through both of us, a long, unblinking tone that made the glass on the nightstand hum. Fire department, a voice shouted, close enough to rattle the frame. I wiped my palms on a towel and went, heart jumping the way a rabbit jumps when it hears a twig. Cold air rushed the hallway when I opened the door, along with diesel, wet wool, and the metallic tang of winter on boots. 2 firefighters stood there in turnout coats black with reflective striping, helmets still beaded with mist. Mr. Alvarez hovered behind them in slippers and an old Jets hoodie, eyes round with apology and curiosity. Ma'am, the taller firefighter said, already looking over my shoulder. His badge read Hernandez. We got a call, person possibly stuck, maybe injured? In the bedroom, I said, and my tongue felt too big. He can't get up. The second firefighter, O'Malley, freckles, kind eyes that had probably seen everything, shifted his tool bag to his other hand. Stuck how? Adhesive, I said, and when O'Malley blinked I heard my voice add, honey. It sounded ridiculous, even inside my own head, and also exactly true. They didn't laugh. They never do, I realized. That's part of the uniform. Hernandez nodded once, practical. Okay. Anyone bleeding? Fire? Gas? No, I said. I gestured helplessly, as if the word sticky had mass I could show them. They moved fast, rubber soles kissing wood. Radios burbled on their shoulders, a background language of codes and calm. Behind them, neighbors collected like lint in the hallway air, the grad student with the nose ring from 4B, the new couple from 5C holding hands, Mr. Alvarez bent like an apology. I heard my husband before I saw him. Do not bring them in here, he hissed, voice pinched. When Hernandez stepped into the room, his face went through 3 colors in a second, anger, embarrassment, relief. O'Malley took it in with one slow pan, the sheets glued to skin in amber islands, the bottle on the nightstand, the cold window cracked to an inch, the olive ovals on the pillowcase, the phone on the floor lighting up and going dark like a heartbeat. Okay, Partner, he said, gentle and professional in a way that made me want to cry for reasons that had nothing to do with honey. Name? My husband swallowed. Richard. Richard, I'm Liam, O'Malley said, already snapping on blue nitrile gloves. We're going to get you comfortable and free. We'll keep you covered as much as we can, all right? Hernandez set the bag down, zippers sighing. Trauma shears, saline, gauze, a small thermal blanket came out like a magician's sober trick. Any allergies? He asked. Just get me out, Richard said through his teeth. Please. Got oil? O'Malley asked me without looking up. Olive, I said, holding up the bottle like proof. Perfect, he said, and I felt stupidly grateful for the word. He glanced at me, saw the way my hands trembled, and took it. We're going to work slow, he told Richard, so we don't take skin. If you feel lightheaded, say something. If you feel like you're going to pass out, say something. Breathing okay? Richard nodded, eyes fixed on a point on the wall like a man making a bargain with a nail. O'Malley poured a thin green ribbon onto the edge of a stuck sheet and worked 2 fingers under, rolling gauze as he went. Hernandez held a folded blanket ready, creating small tens of dignity. The honey yielded with obscene little kisses. A low, strangled sound came from Richard's throat when a patch at his hip peeled. Hernandez's hand landed firm on his shoulder, grounding. Almost there, O'Malley said, and then, quietly to me, you did right not to try solvent. We see worse with acetone. His voice had that soft Irish slope some men inherit and some men learn in rooms like this. The apartment filled with smells, olive sharpness shouldering aside the cloying sugar, cold air threading the heat, the faint burn of latex and the old, clean smoke that lives in turnout gear. Radios hissed. Someone in the hall whispered, "Oh my God," the kind of prayer that expects to be overheard. Richard jolted as the phone on the floor vibrated again. Hernandez's eyes flicked to it, then to me. He towed it under the nightstand without comment. Mercy sometimes looks like a small, invisible thing. Okay, big one, O'Malley said, eyes on the map of adhesive across Richard's flank. On 3, we all breathe. He counted, and on 3 he slid the gauze and lifted, a slow, decisive motion that had the dignity of good work. The sheet separated, threads protesting, the sound like Velcro taught to sing. Richard's fingers clawed the mattress, he made a noise that wasn't language. There we go, Hernandez murmured, and draped the blanket strategically. Gonna cut the rest instead of peel. Safer. Trauma shears whispered through cotton. The sheet transformed from prison to skirt. I stood a half step back, towel crushed in my fists, awareness flickering between the intimacy of Richard's shuddering breath and the public theater of the hall. I felt like I was on a stage in the wrong play. O'Malley's gloved hands were steady, economical, kind. The steadiness made room for my shaking. Ma'am? Hernandez said without looking up. Yes? You okay? It was a simple question. It tilted the room. I don't know, I said, and surprised myself into a laugh that wasn't funny. My throat went hot. Yes. Yes. He nodded. Good. He said it like a ward against chaos, and the word did what it needed to do. Neighbors breathed behind us. The grad student whispered, "Is he glued?" Mr. Alvarez hissed a rebuke, "Give them space." Someone's phone lens caught the flash of red lights across our wedding photo on the dresser. The camera saw it before I did, the way a camera always sees the thing you don't want to remember. All right, Richard, O'Malley said. We're free enough to move. I'm going to ask you to roll to your left on my count. We'll keep you covered. If something sticks, stop. You ready? Just do it, Richard said, and the word scraped. They counted. He rolled. A dozen small sounds accompanied it, the slide of fabric, the soft hiss of gauze, the hiccup noise of honey losing arguments. He fell back, sweat bright on his forehead, eyes shocked wide. Hernandez tucked the blanket like origami. "We'll need to cut the fitted sheet," O'Malley said, flicking his eyes to me for permission, and I realized my head was nodding before he finished the sentence. "We'll keep the mattress intact." Richard's hand shot out and grabbed my wrist. His fingers were slick and shaking, mine were slick and shaking back. "No pictures," he said, not to me but to the doorway, to the hallway, to the world. It came out strangled. "No pictures," I echoed. My voice found a shape it hadn't had in a long time. I stepped into the frame of the door and became a door. "Please," I said to the neighbors, and added a thank you before anyone granted it. It was enough. The new couple flinched and stepped back. The grad student lowered her phone. Mr. Alvarez angled his shoulder to make a wall. Hernandez slipped the shears under the fitted sheet and cut along the corner with the practiced gentleness of a barber shaving a jawline. The elastic surrendered with a mournful ping. O'Malley poured another small ribbon of oil, the smell rose bright and green again. In 3 more movements Richard was free enough to sit, then to stand, shuffling, blanket careful around his hips, the ruined sheet trailing like a white flag soaked in amber. He swayed and O'Malley steadied him. "We can check you in the truck," he said. "Make sure there's no skin damage that needs attention. No charge for a look." "No hospital," Richard rasped. "God, no." His eyes flicked to me, pleading and furious in equal measures. "Please. We can do a once-over here," Hernandez offered. "Need warm water. More oil. Soft cloth. Slow." "I'll get towels," I said, grateful to be given a verb. In the bathroom I turned the tap to a careful warm, the steam climbing the mirror into fog. I pressed towels into the heat and carried them back like offerings. The hallway had thinned, the crowd became a hush. Someone had turned the TV in 4B down to a whisper. They worked. They were quiet. They were kind in the way that counts. I held a towel and asked. I didn't when I wasn't. Richard's skin, freed in patches, showed angry pink ovals where adhesion had argued too hard. He bit the inside of his cheek so long a dark bead appeared, he didn't notice. "All right," O'Malley said after a while, stripping a glove with a practiced snap. "You'll be sore. No hot showers tonight, lukewarm only. Oil and thyme. If anything blisters or looks angry in the morning, urgent care." He glanced at me and lowered his voice. "Do you want us to make a note about anything else?" It was a wide doorway of a question that required no step through. "I'm fine," I said. The words balanced on a small ledge and did not fall. Hernandez gathered the cut sheets into a contractor bag with the discretion of a priest folding altar cloth. He set a card on the dresser, name, station, a number in block blue print. "If anybody online posts anything, call the non-emergency line. We can ask for takedowns sometimes. People," he looked at the door frame, at the world beyond it. "People forget there's a person in the picture." Richard sat on the edge of the bed wrapped in a blanket, small and furious and ashamed. His phone glowed from under the nightstand, patient as a lighthouse. Another preview slid across it, a first name bright as a wound and a heart emoji like a bruise. He shut his eyes. "We'll see ourselves out," O'Malley said, and his eyes met mine for one steady beat that said more than rules allowed. Hernandez's radio crackled, a new address, a new emergency. "Thank you," I said, and meant it so much it hurt. The hall swallowed them, the siren wound down into night. Our apartment exhaled and the silence they left behind sounded like a sea finally going out. Mr. Alvarez's voice floated from the other side of the door, gentler now. "If you need anything," he said, "knock." I closed the door. The latch clicked. I turned and found Richard looking at me over the edge of the blanket, eyes flat and shining, mouth ready to start a war, and then the phone on the floor buzzed again, once, twice, insistent, lighting a message neither of us could unsee. At 7:12 a.m., my phone lit up like a fire alarm, text stacked in a white column that kept climbing. "Are you okay?" "I heard sirens. Was that your building?" "Girl, tell me this isn't you on next door?" My thumb hovered over the screen, a thumbnail spun, loading. For a heartbeat it showed the red strobe on our curtains, the gloss of a turnout coat, the edge of our bedroom doorway. Then it buffered into a smear and vanished, deleted or denied, leaving only a comment thread of strangers with opinions. In the kitchen, the kettle started to scream. I turned off the gas and let the steam escape in a long ghost that smelled like metal and dust. The apartment felt hungover, olive oil in the air, damp towels heaped in the tub, the bed stripped to its bones. He'd fallen asleep at last wrapped in a clean sheet like a penitent, face turned to the wall, the curve of his shoulder low and defensive. I watched the kettle quiet the way you watch a child settle, relieved and unsure what comes next. 3 dots bubbled on my screen, Maya typing. "Do I need to come over?" "I will. Say the word." I typed "I'm fine" and then added "Can we do coffee at lunch?" "Near the courthouse?" The word came out of me before I could stage manage it. She wrote back a single heart and a thumbs up, our shorthand for "I'm here and I won't ask why until you want me to." His phone buzzed on the nightstand with the particular cheery trill of office chat. He flinched awake, sat up too fast, winced. "God," he said, pressing a palm to his hip. "Everything burns." "Lukewarm shower," I said, setting tea on his side where the nightstand used to be, now just a rectangle of quiet wood. "Oil after." "They said no hot water." He wrapped the sheet under his arms and shuffled past me, not looking. In the bathroom, water ran thin and polite. Over it, his phone chimed again. Then again. I reached without thinking and flipped it face down. The screen reflected me, puffy-eyed, hair a knot of battlefield. Somewhere deep in the apartment building a child laughed. Somewhere closer, our radiator clicked to life, pretending normal. He came back pink and damp, a towel at his waist, the blanket over his shoulders like a cape for defeated kings. "We need to talk," he said, and the authority in his voice slipped on the tile and fell. "We do," I said. I slid toast onto a plate, burned edges, butter melting into the good parts. The smell steadied me. "Start." He pinched the bridge of his nose the way he did when pretending to consider both sides. "Last night," he said, "was humiliating." He put weight on the word humiliating like it had happened to him alone. "You crossed a line. You brought a bottle into our bed that didn't belong to us," I said, and felt a strange calm move into my bones, a lodger paying in truth rather than rent. "Tell me her name." He stared at me, shocked, as if I'd asked him to donate something vital. "It's not." "It is," I said, not unkindly. "If we're going to keep speaking English to each other, start with her name." He looked at the table, at the butter knife catching a bright stripe of winter sun. His voice, when it came, had the thinness of paper. He said a name. It didn't sound exotic or villainous. It sounded ordinary and living, and my mouth went dry. "How long?" I asked. He swallowed. "Not long." "How long?" "A couple months." He lied like a man patching a roof in the rain, so earnest, so doomed. I poured tea. Steam rose and touched my face with kind fingers. "Does she know you have a wife?" He flinched, again that squirrel flicker. "It's complicated." It's expensive, I said, and watched the truth land and look around. He made a noise, small and contemptuous, and then the phone on the counter, his phone, forgotten in the fog of pain, lit up with a message that made the room tilt. Invoice paid. Thank you. Zelle confirmation $450, dinner plus car service plus hotel. His face went gray. He snatched the phone, thumbs punching, shoulders bunching like a boy caught with a slingshot. When he looked up, his eyes were full of heat he couldn't place. Don't, he said. Don't you dare. Dare what? I asked, to know what my life is? He dragged the towel tighter and stepped closer, forgetting the sheet, forgetting the tenderness of fresh skin. He hissed, anger crossing wires with pain. You made a circus of it, he whispered. Everyone saw, the neighbors, the firemen. Do you have any idea how fast this kind of thing moves? The office chat, he broke off. His jaw worked. I'm already getting messages. As if on cue, his phone chimed again. He read, and something crushed a little in his face. He spun it at me for a second too long for it to be accidental, a thread of colleagues, a meme of a honey bear bottle wearing a firefighter helmet, a line of bee emojis and laughing faces. Sticky situation, Rick. Hope you're okay, man. Buzz buzz paired with a winky face that felt crueler than the words. He yanked the phone back like a burn. We can control nothing about what people say, I said, but we can decide what we do next. What I do next, he said, correcting without thinking, and there it was, the old grammar of our marriage. I set his tea down. I'm meeting a lawyer at noon, I said, letting the syllables land without music. He went very still. You won't, he said. We can fix this. We can, God, just give me a second to breathe. You've been breathing alone for months, I said gently. How did that feel? He stared at me as if the ocean had suddenly spoken English. Then he did what he always did when cornered, he pivoted to money. We can't afford lawyers, he said, voice tightening. You know what that means for the house? The car? Think about practicalities for once. The word cracked something open in me, a small safe box with a neat stack of indignations. Practicalities? I said, softly, because I had learned that quiet can be louder than shouting. You spent $450 last night on dinner and transport in a hotel after asking me to cancel a weekend out of town because it wasn't smart right now. Color rose at his collarbone. He started to speak. The apartment's buzzer cut him off with a long zoorp that made us both jump. Don't, he said, but he was already looking at the intercom like it might hiss another meme at him. It's just Maya, I said, though I hadn't invited her in. I pressed the button. 5th floor, I said into the speaker. He pulled the blanket up as if my friend's gaze could make him colder. You told her? Jesus, you told her? She told me, I said. She heard the siren. She lives 3 blocks away. I wasn't sure why I was defending the physics of compassion, but the words came anyway. Maya arrived with coffee and a bag of pastries that smelled like butter and patience. She hugged me in the doorway, arms around my shoulders, chin in my hair. Don't talk yet, she whispered. Just chew. She set a croissant in my hand and it flaked on my palm like something saying yes. Richard hovered in the kitchen doorway in his blanket cape and tried to shape his mouth into manners. Morning, he said. His voice failed at neutral. He disappeared back into the bedroom, the door clicking shut like a period closing a hostile sentence. Maya poured coffee, eyes soft. How bad, she asked, because a real friend doesn't pretend we're shopping for adjectives. Bad enough, I said, and the coffee went down like a promise. I told her pieces, not the whole. The siren without the reason, the neighbors without the names, the honey without the story of bees. She touched my wrist with one finger. "You're not crazy," she said, and it was the kind of hot water sentence that makes cold leave a body. At 11:40 I put on real pants and the coat with the ripped lining. The hallway smelled faintly of someone's soup. Richard watched me tie my scarf. "Please," he said, and the word was almost a person standing between us. "Let's talk first. We can go to counseling." "Counseling belongs to people who haven't already written the ending," I said. I tucked my hair under the scarf and felt, absurdly, like a competent person in a movie who knows where she is going even if the audience doesn't. Outside, the day was thin and bright, the kind of cold that makes noses run and cheeks shout. The courthouse steps had blackened ice at the edges. Inside, the lobby air smelled like paper and sanitizer and effort. A woman with a red coat and wise eyes took my name and said the lawyer was running 5 minutes late. I sat in a plastic chair and watched a bailiff joke with a clerk about the Giants, the normalcy of it so loud it hummed. When the lawyer arrived, short, gray curl halo, posture like a spine made of grace, she shook my hand like we were about to carry a small couch together. "Tell me," she said, and I did, not our whole life, just the pieces that would matter to a person whose job is turning pain into paperwork. Her pen made neat, merciful noises. "Photos?" she asked delicately. "Public posts?" "Some chatter," I said. "No faces. I think it'll disappear." "Good," she said. "Public humiliation cuts both ways." She slid a brochure toward me, what to gather, what not to panic about yet. "Do you have access to statements? Joint accounts? Retirement balances?" "Yes," I said automatically, and felt heat crawl up my neck. Did I? I used to. Lately, envelopes went straight to his briefcase. "Start there," she said. "Don't confront. Collect. Quiet is your friend." She tapped the brochure once more, a soft gavel. "And remember, you are not the story the gossip tells." On the walk home, I bought a folder from the corner bodega, the cheapest one with metal prongs that bite paper into order. Back in the apartment, the light had moved across the living room wall into a rectangle that made the dust look like snow. Richard's door was shut. The shower hissed again, another lukewarm penance. I opened the hall closet where we kept the file box, taxes, warranties, the little life we'd laminated. The box weighed like an anchor. On the coffee table, I opened it and found what I expected, years of statements lined up like soldiers, until the most recent months stopped. The whole gaped and hummed. I felt very awake. In the desk drawer, under the takeout menus, I found the thin stack he must have meant to refile and hadn't. The top paper was a bank statement with our names. The next was a transfer slip, neat typed lines and a number that made my mouth taste like pennies, $2,800, memo, consulting. The next, $1,200, memo, deposit, travel. The dates were not guesses or metaphors. They stood there in black ink like they were proud of themselves. I set them in the folder with hands that had stopped shaking. My phone buzzed. A new message from a number I didn't know. "Is Richard okay?" He isn't answering. I'm worried. A name at the end, the same ordinary one that had floated our kitchen that morning, now anchored to a voice that wanted reassurance from the person who had none to give. I typed nothing. I slid the final page free and there it was, a scheduled transfer for Friday noon, clean as a calendar square, $5,000, new project. The printer ink hadn't even fully dried. When I touched the corner, it smudged like a bruise becoming a story. The knock wasn't a question, it was a verdict. 3 flat raps that made the picture frames tremble. I opened the door with my folder under my arm and a teaspoon of honey still cooling on my tongue. Richard underscore underscore underscore, the woman in the navy peacoat asked, eyes already scanning past me. Her hair was pulled back in a no-nonsense tail, her breath a little white ribbon in the hallway cold. In the bedroom, I said, and stepped aside. She moved with purpose, not unkind. Sir? I'm a registered process server. You're being served. The papers sounded like a small storm when they slid from the envelope. Richard took them with both hands the way you catch a falling plate. His blanket slipped an inch and he yanked it up, pride and skin showing the same red. What is this? He asked, already reading and already knowing. The word dissolution sat high on the page like a lighthouse. It's the paperwork, I said, because I didn't have a poet handy. And there's a temporary order about joint funds. The metal tang of stress was back in my mouth. Somewhere, a neighbor's radio played an old love song at a respectful volume. The process server had the grace to focus on the floor. You'll find instructions inside, she said. There are automatic restraining provisions on major transfers. She handed me a receipt copy and nodded. Good luck, she added in a voice that recognized what her job couldn't address, and vanished down the hall with rubber soles and quiet haste. He flipped pages with fingertips still tender from last night, wincing at the paper's bite. You're freezing the account, he said, voice thin. This is nuclear. This is oxygen, I said. You scheduled a $5,000 transfer for noon. He went still. The clock over the stove ticked loud enough to be rude. You went through my hour, I said. I set the folder on the table with its neat metal prongs like teeth. We're going to be adults. We're going to be boring. We're going to stop bleeding money into stories I didn't audition for. He laughed, a single dry sound that wanted to be a cough. You think you're the only one hurt, he said without looking at me. You think you're righteous. I think I'm awake, I said, and surprised myself by not crying. There's coffee. We sat like uneasy coworkers. The steam rose and gently licked the underside of my jaw. I felt my pulse in my palm where it pressed the mug. He read the papers again and kept landing on the same sentence, no disposition of community property without written consent. It was printed in a font that had never been in love. At 11:52, my phone vibrated, an email from my lawyer. Filed. Automatic orders in effect. Final note, log into your bank now and cancel any pending outgoing transfers. It will be ugly if you wait. The honey in my tea made a small golden galaxy when I stirred. I logged in. My fingers didn't shake. The afternoon light showed a fine lace of dust on the screen and the scar on my knuckle from when I slipped with a paring knife last Thanksgiving. Activity, transfer pending, $5,000, new project. My thumb hovered over cancel and I thought of bees, work you don't see until you do. I tapped. The button went from blue to gray to gone. A new banner appeared, declined, restricted by court order. Something unclenched in my chest, something else tightened. The apartment felt suddenly taller. He was watching my face. You did it, he said, not a question. He placed the papers down very carefully, like glass on tile. You're making a mistake. I'm making a decision, I said. Outside, a bus released its brakes with a sigh. The building took a breath with it, old wood adjusting. Do you want me to beg? He asked, and the rawness wasn't attractive or tragic. It was simply there. Do you want me on my knees? He gestured at the floor, then at the blanket. I can't, physically, but I will, if that's the coin. I want you to stop pretending we lived the same year, I said, and if it landed somewhere it couldn't do much. He stood, paced 2 steps, grimaced, sat. The blanket shifted like weather. We moved around each other the rest of the morning in practical verbs. He called his boss and used the words medical emergency and some private matters. I took photos of the statements, each image a sting I chose on purpose. He tried to make eggs and burned them. The kitchen smelled like scorched protein and butter and admission. I opened windows, let February bite my cheeks. The air felt clean because it hurt. At 1:07 p.m., a text came to his phone that illuminated the ceiling from the nightstand like a small sunrise. "Are you okay?" "I'm worried. I shouldn't have called last night." I panicked. Then another, seconds later, "Please don't shut me out." I set a mug down too hard. The sound cracked and hung. He saw my eyes flick and angled the screen away, childish and weary. She's not what you think," he said, which is what everyone says about everyone right before the flood. "I don't think about her," I said, and it was mostly true. "I think about me." It felt strange and useful to say. "Congratulations," he said, minus a thin coat of paint that didn't fully cover anything. He stood, wrapped the blanket tighter, and retreated to the bedroom. The door clicked in that same trickle of a way that used to charm me. I stared at the wood grain until it stopped being metaphor and returned to tree. I stripped the bed. The ruined sheet went into the contractor bag with the rest, the weight of it unceremonious and heavy, the honey gone cloudy and hardened in dull islands. I wiped the mattress with warm water and oil in small patient circles, like polishing a brass nameplate. The smell turned the room into a bakery that once hosted a fire. When it was dry, I made the bed with the good linen, the set I'd been saving for a guest who never arrived. The fabric whispered under my hands. I smoothed the duvet, tucked the corners with a satisfaction that didn't ask for applause. The doorbell buzzed again. I braced, then laughed at myself when I saw the florist through the peephole, cheeks red from the cold, hands full of a too large bouquet. White lilies, red roses, eucalyptus, apology in a vase. "Delivery for," he checked the card, M_____. "I'm M," I said, and the bouquet slid into my hands with the weight of a bribe. The card said, "We can fix this, R." The smell was wet and green and hospital pure. I set it on the counter next to the folder and felt nothing useful. Maya texted, "You alive?" I sent a photo of the bed instead of the flowers. "Progress," I typed. She replied with a bee emoji and a sword. At 3:30, I sat at the kitchen table with a calculator, a notebook, and the folder open like a jaw. Numbers lined up when I asked them to. I wrote down the practicals out loud to my own mind, half the savings, half the retirement, sell or buy out on the apartment. I wrote therapy in a margin. I wrote news sheets and underlined it twice, laughing without sound. He emerged around dinner in jeans and a t-shirt, moving carefully, dignity stitched in. "Do you want me to go to a hotel?" he asked, and the effort it took him to offer it was visible and almost tender. "I want you to sleep in the other room," I said. "I want you to not touch the accounts. I want you to stop spending money we both earned on anything you can't say out loud." He nodded like a man being told the ocean is wet. "Okay," he said. "Okay." We ate separately. He closed himself in the small room with the desk and fell into the internet's deep blue light. I stood at the sink and washed dishes by hand because the dishwasher, loud and untrustworthy, felt like too much. The honey jar sat on the counter half empty, sunlight caught inside it. I dipped the tip of my spoon and tasted. It was still sweet. It still tasted like clover in July. It didn't taste like revenge, it tasted like control. I made tea and carried it to the living room. The radiator hissed and clanked its timeless Morse code. Down the hall, Mr. Alvarez's TV offered the steady murmur of a game show. I opened the window an inch. Cold kissed the glass in my lips, and the city exhaled a cool, complicated breath. I wrapped a blanket around my shoulders, the one my mother knit before her hands got tired, and let it be heavy. My phone lit up, email from my lawyer. Judge signed the temporary orders. Next steps attached. We'll discuss Monday. A PDF blinked open, black type on white, official as gravity. I felt my ribs expand as if I'd been corseted for months. Another buzz followed it immediately. Unknown number again. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I didn't know about the money. Please hear me. The name at the end was the same ordinary name, now attached to a plea shaped like a small white flag. I set the phone face down and listened to the apartment talk to me, the familiar clicks, the old pipes, the traffic far below. Somewhere a siren threaded the evening and moved away, a rumor that belonged to other people now. I took the honey off the counter, stirred a teaspoon into my cup, and watched the gold dissolve and vanish into heat. Then Richard cleared his throat in the doorway. He looked smaller, eyes glass bright, the papers under his arm. "There's something you didn't see," he said, voice low. "About the transfers. About all of it." The kettle began to hiss again, as if the room had decided to insist on steam. I set the spoon down very carefully, the metal ringing the mug like a soft bell, and waited.